views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Hello, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Welcome to my show. Today's special guest is Mr. Shawn Carney. He is a CEO and president of 40 Days for Life. And also he's an author for several books. So let's talk about you before the book, eh? So where were you born and raised?
I'm from Tyler, Texas, which is the eastern part of the state. And both my parents still live in Tyler. My siblings still live in Tyler. And I went to a great Catholic school. When you go to Catholic school in East Texas, about 90% of the students are Southern Baptists. There's not a whole lot of Catholics. And so I was one of the few Catholics and am related to most of the other Catholics in Tyler to this day. And so it was a great experience, and it certainly prepared me for the pro-life movement. And I was fortunate to have very pro-life priests in our Catholic school. Abortion was talked about often, I would say. And so I was very, very fortunate in that regard, and that by the 8th grade, I knew everything about the reality of abortion in our culture.
So how old were you when you basically started to get interested in helping the unborn?
I would say middle school. I was sort of intellectually passionate about it, arguing about it if it came up among friends or family. And then in high school is when I really got involved because I heard two former abortion workers give talks at different times. And so that really impacted me. But the first time I ever went to a sidewalk to pray at an abortion facility was just before my freshman year of college.
So were you a prayer partner or a prayer sidewalk counselor?
Yes.
Both?
Yes. I was a sidewalk counselor. I would go out regularly and pray, but I was also a trained sidewalk counselor as well, as was my then girlfriend, now wife, Mary Lisa, who was an excellent sidewalk counselor.
40 Days for Life, when was this formed and why?
Well, really out of frustration in 2004, we saw our local abortion numbers going up, and we just spent an hour in prayer and, what we could possibly do. So, 40 days just came to us for obvious reasons, how God uses that time period throughout scripture, not only to bring his own people back to him, but to transform the culture. And so we decided to go all in for 40 days by doing 40 days of prayer, 40 days of fasting, and 40 days of a peaceful nonstop vigil outside of our local abortion facility.
What was that abortion facility?
That was a Planned Parenthood in College Station, Texas. And it has since closed. It's one of 114 abortion facilities that have closed following a 40 Days for Life. And it's now our headquarters for 40 Days for Life. And so, College Station is home to Texas A&M University. It's the third largest university in the country. And now College Station is the largest college town without an abortion facility. Praise God.
So it is a non-profit organization, 40 Days for Life organization.
Yes, so it grew. We did the first campaign in 2004 as a local campaign, and then we launched nationally and then internationally in 2007. So it's now gone from College Station to over 1,000 cities in 65 different countries.
I thank the Lord for that. So tell us more about the sidewalk counselors, what they do for the woman who are just about going in.
Yeah, it's the most important conversation in the world. In fact, 40 Days for Life just recently launched a new sidewalk outreach training to help people on a very basic level respond to women who are going in for an abortion, reach out to women who are going in for abortions. It's the only thing you can do with an hour of your week, unless you're a trauma surgeon, where you can really save a life, in that hour. And so it's a very important conversation. Most women want somebody to care and aren't offended when you reach out lovingly. And so we just launched a training of how to do that. It helps. It helps to have women, old and young, as doing sidewalk outreach, and it helps to have men doing sidewalk outreach.
How do the counselors approach the abortion-minded woman?
Well, one thing we cover in our training is that it's not rocket science. It's very basic. You can start by telling them hello or good morning. A lot of people freak out thinking, what do I say? And as if, as if they're our enemy, or they think that we're their enemy, which they may, but good morning goes a long way.
Yeah.
I know this is a hard day for you. Goes a long way. You don't have to do this today. We're here to help you. We have free medical help. That goes a long way. So it's not complicated. I think over the years, we've complicated something that's too important to be complicated. We need more people doing sidewalk counseling. And there's some great trainings out there where you can basically get your PhD in sidewalk counseling. But we need a lot of people with just a bachelor's degree. We need people that can get trained. This is often not a content issue, but a confidence issue. And we need to give people more inspiration and confidence and tools, proven tools, to do sidewalk counseling, because as you said, those are the best people, and that saves the most lives when you have people out there doing that. So it's very powerful.
Without that, a lot of people will not listen. You have to have like some sort of relationship with the mother. And what I mean is strike out a conversation, be gentle with that woman, because she's under a lot of stress at that moment, not knowing what to do. She's being either pressured or whatever. And you just have to say, I'm here for you. We are reaching out to you. And that's why we're here, to help save you and your baby. How important the baby really is, what the baby is from conception up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can relay that. We're not embarrassed of science. We embrace science.
Yes.
And it's not that women going in for abortions aren't culpable for what they're doing. They are. But more often than not, they don't know the gravity of it. But also that they're not thinking clearly. Nobody wakes up and plans their life out and says at 25, I'm going to get an abortion. It's never the plan. And they're not, anytime we sin, all of us, we're clouded. We're justifying it. We're looking out for ourselves and no one else.
Scared to be green too.
Yeah, we've got to fight through that fog and reach them. And sidewalk outreach is a great way to do that.
I cannot understand why the whole community is blind. That it's up to us, your organization and others, to say, this is what the truth is. Let's take the veil off your eyes and take whatever it is out of your ears to hear the truth.
Well, every injustice, it's easier to live with it when you live in that time period. I'm sure there were a lot of people up north that said that I don't have to grow cotton. What do I care if a plantation owner has 20 slaves? Everybody's got to run their own business. And so, apathy is easy when you live in the time period. And our time period, we have the greatest injustice of all, where, like slavery, our Supreme Court has once again dehumanized an entire segment of our population, and half the country thinks that that's okay. That's just the reality. And so you have to shake your culture lovingly, but you have to. That's why we do this publicly. That's why we go out to a 40 Days for Life and publicly witness where the abortions take place.
It's like the shepherd showing his lambs what the truth is, that he's protecting them from the evil that is out there. That's what you're doing as 40 Days for Life people. I'm glad you're there for them. So you're around the world, no?
Yes, we're in 65 different countries where 40 Days for Life has taken place. We actually just added South Korea this last fall.
Oh, wow.
And we've had Cuba, we've had Venezuela, we've had Hong Kong, we've had places where there's a lot of hostility. We've had communist countries do 40 Days for Life. There's more freedom of speech in Moscow than there is in Paris these days. It shows where the West is headed. But, it's taken off like wildfire, because I think people, above all, and you've referenced it a little bit, they feel helpless when it comes to abortion. What can I possibly do? And 40 Days for Life is simply an invitation to do something about the children dying where you live from abortion.
Now, you recently wrote a book along with Steve Carlin. What is it called?
It's called What to Say When, the complete new guide to discussing abortion. And the book came out in September. And we've just been really blown away by the response to the book. We got a lot of requests for this book. That's why we wrote it. And I've gotten requests for a book like this for over 10 years. And we wrote it. We started writing it during the pandemic. And in 2020, we kind of dabbled in it, wrote a few chapters, and then we really dug in early 2021 so that we could release it in September. And the response was great for a pro-life book. It just helps our movement. It was a #1 bestseller on Amazon. It was #2 for all Christian books on Amazon. So it really, what helped the book also is abortion being in the limelight because of the Dobbs case and because of the Texas law where I live. So abortion is being talked about in the media. So people are going to work or they're going to Thanksgiving dinner, and their coworker or their uncle is bringing up abortion. And so we saw that from feedback we've gotten, so many people just felt ill-equipped. And so we cover everything, and some of the pro-abortion arguments that most people haven't heard of but are out there, like forced birth. But we also cover overpopulation. We've gotten the best feedback on our in-depth chapter on rape, which rape is usually the #1 thing that comes up. But overall, the theme of the book is that we love people to our side, and that we go on offense. I mean, we don't have to justify life. We never do that. And yet abortion requires justification. And so it's not that pro-life advocates need to be able to defend life. That's like the last resort. It's that we need to be able to go on offense and show the emptiness and the lie and the anti-scientific position that a pro-choice person must enter into in order to support this barbaric surgery. So we've gotten great feedback on the book. We've been told that it's in depth, it's easy to use, it's tangible. You can flip to any section. We actually do give you exactly what to say and what not to say. There's some comedic relief throughout the book, and so I think people are enjoying it, and it is certainly great to see the book get out there. We'll enter our third printing in 2022, and so it's really been a useful resource, and it's a book that is written to put to work, and that's what we're excited about.
What is the most important topic in that book? Or are they all just equal in this house?
That's a good question. I would say the most important topic is the overall theme, which is that we go on offense. And that doesn't mean we storm around like a bunch of know-it-alls yelling at people about abortion, but it means that it's our disposition. Often we as pro-life people, we don't have an argument issue because we're right. We ought not kill babies. And there's a million different ways to prove that we shouldn't. But we too often have a confidence problem. And sometimes that's the awkwardness of when something comes up and you never expect it, right? And so that's why the book is written the way that it's written. It's to you're on a plane, or you're at dinner with friends. We really get into politics too, of when to use politics and when to avoid politics, because nowadays, if you say I'm pro-life, somebody's going to say, well, you don't care about kids at the border, and all of a sudden you're at the Mexico border and you were just discussing abortion. And so there's ways to navigate those things and
to get it back on the trail.
Exactly.
The younger generation is more aware than us 50, 60-year-old people who were raised to think that abortion was the only answer to unwanted pregnancy. It wasn't.
It's a good point. And there, every generation sort of has their sin and their weakness and their strength. And young people, they believe in a lot of wacky stuff. The Generation Z, but they're all pro-life. They're all pro-life. There was a lot of data that came out on that with the election, with young people in 2020. We got great data on how pro-life Generation Z was. I'm barely a millennial, so I'm an old millennial, and the millennials are very pro-life. But Generation Z, unlike me, they had like their little brother's ultrasound on the refrigerator when they were growing up. And I think, one of the craziest generations, for many good reasons and not good reasons, are the baby boomers. And as the baby boomers get old, as you mentioned, abortion was just like, well, yeah,
it was acceptable is the main thing.
Totally.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know. I don't know. That was, you have the World War II generation. They come home from fighting in the Pacific. They come home from Germany and they want to read the paper and they want to have a family and they want to love their kids and they want to go to work. And their kids, there was a lot of upheaval. I think it's always easier for me or any younger person to judge a previous generation, but there was a lot of upheaval, but there was chaos. The divorce rate skyrocketed. You had wide acceptance of contraception. You had wide acceptance of abortion.
Common law
marriages, all of that. And what happens is you have the baby boomers now getting older, many of whom are reverts on the pro-life position. You sort of have those Reagan baby boomers where they're like, I don't just want to be free and want to be me. I've got to like raise my kids and pay taxes. And there was a little bit of a settling down with some of them, but that mentality that children are a burden was just prevalent in our country the last 40 years. And that's a dangerous mentality. That's a very dangerous mentality. And as the baby boomers die off, and you see, other generations, the millennials getting older, Generation Z getting older, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond.
Hopefully they're for the better.
I hope for the better on our issue. I think it's one of the reasons that the pro-life issue, the abortion issue, is one of the very few cultural fronts that we're winning, that Christians are winning. And so that's a very good thing, but we'll see how it happens. We have most of our 40 Days for Life leaders, many of them, the majority are baby boomers, and they're always criticizing their own generation. But they represent a lot of baby boomers, which are people that really don't believe this nonsense anymore. And they looked up, and at one point they were on their dad's knee, and it was 1955 or 1960, and they look up today and they simply don't recognize their country.
No, I
And,
don't. I don't.
yeah.
Because we were brought up to be conscious, compassionate and everything. Then we hit the 60s, and then we hit the rebellion, and then we hit free will, free this, free that, free sex, whatever. And then they said, oh, I don't want the baby. I just want to have fun. So that's when they started to get rid of the babies. And it's,
And when you legally dehumanize a group of people, which Dred Scott did to blacks in our country, which Nazi law did to Jews,
yes.
and which Roe v. Wade did to the unborn, once you're dehumanized, you're easier to kill, you're easier to own, you're easier to control. And that's what we're seeing.
Darwin, he didn't help either.
He didn't help on a lot of fronts.
I'm telling you. So, so what that book is a guide on how to talk to the pro-choice, as well as people who do not know what pro-life is, and they have questions. They got to know.
And also, Patty, for those of us in this work, I think one of the surprising things that the feedback I've gotten from the book are from pro-life people that say, I needed to sharpen the sword, and I was nervous when rape came up, or I was nervous when somebody said, what about forced birth? Or I was nervous when somebody brought up in vitro and connected it to abortion. So many people feel ill-equipped. And so it's definitely designed to talk to those who support abortion, but it's just a great refresher and sort of introduction to some of these new and bizarre pro-abortion arguments, because we don't have Bill Clinton anymore. It's not safe, legal, and rare. It's shout your abortion and infanticide, and we have enforced birth,
infanticide and euthanasia, and there's no love. That's why we're here, to bring back this love that Jesus gave us. Jesus, in God's name. With the abortion being the factor here, over the years, how did it affect our society? It lessened the families, broke up families.
Yeah, well, it does the most unnatural thing, which is divorces a mother from her child. It literally pins families against one another, but it pins babies against their own mother.
Yeah.
And you hear these stories and see these videos of these moms who pick up their car off of a railroad track because their child is inside. It's just the most intense love. It's the way our Lord came into the world. He could have popped out of an acorn, but he didn't. He chose Mary. He chose a family and chose to be in the womb. He didn't show up as a 14-year-old. So, that is the greatest victory, I think, of the devil, that he has divorced not just parents, but he's divorced children from parents. And that is, once we can kill our own children, what can we not do? That was the Mother Teresa famous quote. If we can tell a mother she can kill her child, how can we tell anyone not to harm anyone? And that there's a lot of reason in that, and that's hard to argue with. And so, we see upheaval in our culture. We see so many things going on, but that starts at home. We are longing to go home. And I talk about that in my other book, To the Heart of the Matter.
We do live in an evil world because of Satan, but we are here. The reason why Christians are here is because Jesus came. to show the light, to give the light of the Lord himself, to help the people who are lost. Churches are made for people who are sick in sin. That's what they're there for. And we are here to help reach out to them, saying, you're not alone, God is with you.
That's right. And you said it perfectly. We're not storming around talking about how the world's going to hell in a handbasket. We are doctors and nurses running into a hospital that's full of sick people. And just because the sick people don't acknowledge that they're sick doesn't mean that they're not sick. It only makes them sicker. And so, our culture is very sick. It's very depraved, and it needs love and it needs truth. And that's why we have to balance that. That's the way What to Say When is written, is balancing the truth and love. They're inseparable. And so, and people convert, in the book, we talk about, this isn't like our opinion. These are proven ways. People change on abortion. They have for 50 years. The conversion gate swings in one direction. The women who have abortions, the doctors who do them, the people who work at Planned Parenthood, they're converting. Baby boomers who we reference, they're converting, they're becoming pro-life. And that is, it's possible. It's definitely possible. I've seen it thousands of times.
We have about a minute left. What would you like to say to my audience to give them hope about the future, about the children?
Just that the pro-life movement doesn't exist in a lot of countries, and it does in America. And it does more than exist. It's thriving. And we really are seeing the beginning of the end of abortion, and despite 50 years of legalized abortion. And that will be a great victory for the grassroots of our country, where all the real people live in our country. When abortion ends, it's not because, it just being deemed from the top down. It's going to be all these pregnancy centers across the country that went to work, especially there in Indiana. It's going to be things like 40 Days for Life and adoption agencies and people who went to work for the last 50 years. So I want to encourage people to be part of it, because abortion will end in our country. 50
years, kiddo. I hate to ask how many of our youngins had to be killed.
That's about 64 million. 64 million is what we've lost in our country alone since.
That's a whole country.
Definitely.
I'd like to thank you, my friend, for coming onto my show and spreading the news about 40 Days for Life in your book, which is a guide to help speak up and talk to the people who do not understand what abortion is and all that, especially to the pro-choice people who are trying to give an argument. So God bless you, sir.
Thank you. God bless you. Keep up the great work.
I'd like to have you on my show again if you could.
Okay. Thank you.
I got all kind of questions. So this is Patty Hunter, Patty's Page. Thank you so much. I thank our guest, Shawn Carney, for being with us and for sharing and loving. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Patty. God bless.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always for the rest of us.